What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in with us this week for another great episode of Killing Time with Rogue. Just a couple announcements before we get started for this week. Next week, we are going to be recording our live stream on Twitch. You can see our faces, hear the story unedited, and I'm going to be having a guest star to try to make the topic more interesting. This live stream will be available on YouTube, but will be edited, and you will not be able to see our faces, which is very sad. We also got verified for a Patreon account, and if you pay the monthly subscription fee, you will have access to podcasts that have not been heard on any other platform. I made merchandise, and because of COVID, shipping is delayed, so it will not be here before Christmas, but I assure you, those who order the merchandise, it is coming, and I appreciate your business. Every little thing helps us, especially now. For those watching, please make sure to subscribe to our page, that way you get weekly updates and access to our most recent videos. If you want to be part of making episodes with us, please comment below, reach out on YouTube or Twitch. And with all that being said, with me this week, as always, is Hannah.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Just for reference for the viewers at home, we typically record on Sundays, and I can honestly say, what a week. Allegheny County got shut down again.
Because of all the restaurants shutting down, the pizza shop where I work at has picked up. We've been very dead for the last few days, or weeks, but now everyone's popping up, ordering. So that's nice, I guess.
I mean, it's good because you have a job, but that sucks because there can be a point where you're too busy.
Yeah. It's hard times, kind of scary. We're getting locked down again, so everyone's a little panicked.
Yeah. What do they do? I didn't watch the news, but people were telling me that the lockdown's happening again. Did they say anything about Greene County or wherever your pizza shop is? I'm not really sure where it's at.
I think Governor Wolf kind of made it all of Pennsylvania. It's not lockdown. We're doing the lockdown that we did at the beginning of the pandemic, where essential workers are still going to work. They're just shutting down bars and bowling alleys and museums and stuff like that, and it sucks because people do that is their jobs. And it is 2 weeks before Christmas, but as far as I know, just that's what it is. Everyone just wear your mask, stay home if you need to, social distance. With the holidays coming up, it's probably best not to go into a large gathering right now.
Seriously, yeah. Actually, one of my neighbors just tested positive.
Yeah, a girl at my work, she has been there for a month. She's still testing positive. That's only because she is going out and partying with no mask on.
Oh, well, that's different.
We did have a lady where her husband tested positive, and she has been there for about 2.5 weeks now, but she's coming back because she's got a negative test.
Oh, that's good.
So my boss is taking it very seriously.
Good. As he should, honestly. It's a very serious matter.
Yeah, we're all covered on that basis, but killing time with Rogue, we all we promote the mask wearing,
definitely,
the social distancing, and trying to just stay safe and healthy these holiday seasons. It's scary, we know. We're here. Now we're trying to take your minds off of that with murder. So
you're not wrong.
We're training a scary for a scary, I guess. So
instead of scary reality, I guess this is kind of
that happened a few years ago.
Yeah,
we're giving we're bringing up those tasteful memories. So. Today we are going to be talking about one of America's favorite serial killers. Very notorious, so many documentaries on him. He's very fascinating. I know he is the reason why I got into all the criminal and murder and all that stuff that I love today. The infamous second to Ted Bundy, but the most infamous I don't even know the word. Most spectacular, well-known serial killer, Sir Jeffrey Dahmer himself.
For those who don't know, Jeffrey Dahmer was a serial killer and a cannibal His reign of terror lasted from 1978 to 1991. In this almost 20-year time span, Dahmer only killed 17 people. They were predominantly African American males that were homosexual. His preferred method of obtaining his victims was to lace their drinks or food with drugs, then proceed to strangle them until dead. Since the victims were in a weakened state due to being drugged, they were easier to subdue. Ugh. Once he strangled his victims, he would then perform sexual acts with their bodies, which is necrophilia.
Although performing these sexual acts on the corpse is strange, it's not the strangest thing that Dahmer did to his victims. He would dismember their bodies by cutting off their various parts, and he would keep their skulls and their genitals as souvenirs. He would put like their heads in the freezer and like the fridge, and like he just like his whole apartment was like filled basically. And he would also take pictures of the victims during the murdering process, so he could relive the feeling and the other things.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's like an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
Like most convicted serial killers, or convicted killers in general, Dahmer had a pretty normal childhood. That's how it always starts. He was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on May 21st, 1960, to parents Lionel and Joyce Dahmer. Until age 4, he was a happy and very energetic child. Then he had to have surgery to fix a double hernia. Shortly after his surgery, his younger brother was born and something in Jeffrey changed. This is a typical characteristic we often see in serial killers. I've read many books about serial killers and convicted felons, and the typical turning point for these individuals occurs early in childhood. A person's childhood is when they really start figuring out who they are, cognitively speaking. They are sponges and take in the information of how people treat one another and project that onto other people. With the additional attention needed from the parents for the newborn child, this could have been just the beginning of Jeffrey's problems.
Yeah, they say that some serial killers do get jealous and they take it out on their victims, projecting their feelings on family members and stuff. I also read that, and that's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That could explain the aggression he had, that he like pushed onto people, but that does not explain the necrophilia and the cannibalism. During the interviews with Jeffrey, he quoted saying that his compulsion towards necrophilia and murder began around the age of 14. With his parents getting divorced a few years short later, he could essentially speed up the aggression.
Yeah. By the time Jeffrey committed his first murder, he was a substance abuser with the most common and legal substance readily available: alcohol. His alcoholism had gotten so bad that he had to drop out of Ohio State University, and his father suggested he do something constructive with himself, and Dahmer decided to join the army. Shortly after his enlistment, he was posted in Germany. Unfortunately, joining the army did not help his alcoholism, it just made it worse. It got so bad that the army discharged him, and were investigating the unsolved murders that took place while Dahmer was stationed there. But there was no evidence that these murders were related to Dahmer in any way.
After being discharged from the army, Dahmer moved back in with his father in Ohio. Shortly after returning home, Dahmer was arrested for disorderly conduct, and this pushed his father to the edge. He made Jeffrey move in with his grandmother in Wisconsin. You would think moving in with your grandmother would make it, like you weren't as reckless, but Dahmer was not the case. With living with his grandmother, he was arrested 2 separate times, both times for indecency and exposure.
During his reign of terror, Dahmer killed 17 people, and he was careful with his selection of the victims. To fit the bill of someone Dahmer would find pleasing, you would have to be on the brink of society, meaning you had to be a borderline criminal, or someone who no one paid any mind to, and a homosexual. So if you were almost a criminal, someone that basically faded in the background, or homosexual, you were like Dahmer's favorite person.
You were like top.
Yeah, you were top dollar.
You were getting drafted.
Yeah. Dahmer's first victim was a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks, who met his demise in June of 1978. Dahmer took Hicks to his parents' house and got him drunk. When Hicks decided to try and leave, Dahmer struck him in the head with a barbell and strangled him until he was dead. Dahmer dismembered his corpse and put Hicks's body parts in plastic bags around his parents' yard. After some time has passed and the flesh rotted off the bone, Dahmer exhumed the body parts and crushed the remaining bones with a sledgehammer and scattered them in the wooden ravine.
Jeez. Like, it's just crazy because him and like Ted Bundy just like they were very keen on like they're very aggressive. Almost a decade passed before Dahmer took his second victim, Stephen Toomey.
I think it's Toomey. Like
Toomey.
Yeah.
In September of 1987, Dahmer and Toomey checked into a hotel. Dahmer woke up to Tommy's dead body and allegedly had no recollection of what happened the night before. Panicked, Dahmer brought a large suitcase to transport Toomey's body to his grandmother's house. Cleaned the hotel room the best he could. Once back at his grandma's house, he dismembered the body, masturbated on the corpse before disposing of the remains. It was not until Dahmer killed 2 more victims that his grandma became tired of his darkness in late nights.
Drunkenness.
In his late nights, she allegedly had no idea of his actions.
This only takes us up to 4 of the 17 men that Dahmer killed. Over the next 2 years, Dahmer got busy. He essentially went out with a bang. During those 2 years, he committed 13 murders and had to get creative with how he was disposing of the bodies, which is when he started his journey with cannibalism. To help achieve his need for torture of his victims, he would often perform lobotomies, which is inserting a hole in the skull, and insert hydrochloric acid to cause the victims intense amounts of pain before their brain turned to liquid. The starting of Dahmer's downfall occurred in 1991.
He also performed lobotomies to turn these men into sex slaves before he killed them. I remember reading that somewhere. That's what I read somewhere.
Yeah.
But this next part is what drives me up a wall. It's on May 27th, 1991, Dahmer's neighbor, Sandra Smith, called the police for an Asian boy who was running naked in the streets. When the police arrived, the boy was incoherent and they accepted the word of Dahmer. A white man in a largely poor African-American community, that boy was his 19-year-old lover. The boy, in fact, was only 14 and has been in Dahmer's prisoner for 3 years. Once the police left the area, Dahmer killed him and performed his ritual with the body, and the police would have done the typical search. They would have found him, and he would have been fine. They literally complained of smells too. I read the whole Wikipedia of Jeffrey Dahmer, and this is the part that pisses me off to this day, is the fact that all they had to do was step one little thing into his apartment, because they said in the I think it was the Wikipedia, that he had one of his other victims on the counter, his body parts on the counter. But they never went in, even though multiple people complained about the smell, not only of the rotting bodies, but of really strong chemical smells. And they just handed this 19-year-old incoherent naked man into, just gave him back to him. They're like, here, have him. Literally just was here. They did not search Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. They should have, because it's kind of a little bit suspicious, and they shouldn't have gave someone who's coherent back to a stranger. You know what I mean? So angry about it.
Even nowadays, because in the article it said it was they didn't want to get in between a domestic dispute or whatever. But nowadays, if that happens, in my apartment building, there's always cops here for a couple that screams. It's kind of ridiculous. They should just fucking... Anyway,
I don't know.
Cops will come and they have to search the apartment to make sure there's nothing else,
It's literally, it's that, and it's just like when the Zodiac killer wrote to the police officer and was like, you guys literally drove past me as I was leaving the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
It was like those two things are so notorious, like in my brain right now, of these serial killers, because like they could have been caught sooner.
Yeah.
No one. They just police back then were not like the like it was all new to them, like being like that, like criminal and serial killers and everything. I get it.
Well, I mean, not in the 90s because it was like my dad was telling me because his parents were weird. So in the 60s and 70s, that's when like the whole murdering thing, like it wasn't uncommon to find a dead body, So it's not like they were new to it, it's just how they approached it. It could have been handled a lot differently.
Yeah, they handle it a lot different now than it did back then. Like, personally, we weren't even alive yet. We weren't even born for another 7 years.
Yeah.
But it's crazy.
It is.
To think. But anyways.
Dahmer's killing spree came to an end on July 22nd, 1991. The body parts and Polaroids of his victims are what are typically associated with Dahmer's reign and can be found on the internet and in biographies about Dahmer. 2 Milwaukee police officers were led to Dahmer's... When they picked up Tracy Edwards, a 32-year-old African-American man who was wandering the streets with handcuffs dangling from his wrist. They decided to investigate the man's claims that a, quote, weird dude had drugged and restrained him. They arrived at Dahmer's apartment, where he calmly offered to get the keys for the handcuffs. Edwards claimed that the knife Dahmer had threatened him with was in the bedroom. When the officers went in to collaborate the story, he noticed Polaroid photographs of dismembered bodies lying around. Dahmer was subdued by the police officers. Subsequent searches revealed a head in the refrigerator, 3 more in the freezer, and a catalog of other horrors, including preserved skulls, jars containing genitalia, an extensive gallery of macabre Polaroid photographs of his victims. In 1996, following Dahmer's death, a group of Milwaukee businessmen raised more than $400,000 to purchase the items he used for his victims, including blades, saws, handcuffs, and a refrigerator to store the body parts. They promptly destroyed them in an effort to distance the city from the horrors of Dahmer's actions and the ensuing media circus surrounding his trial.
Dahmer's trial began in January of 1992. Given the majority of Dahmer's victims were African American, there were considerably racial tensions. So strict security precautions were taken, including an 8-foot barrier of bulletproof glass that separated him from the gallery. The conclusion of only one African in the jury provoked further unrest, which was ultimately contained and short-lived. Lionel Dahmer and his second wife attended the trials throughout. Dahmer's intentionally pled not guilty to all the... What was the word?
Initially
pled not guilty to all the charges, despite having confessed to the killings during the investigation, or like over the interrogation. He eventually changed his plea to guilty by virtue of insanity. His defense then offered a gruesome detail of his behaviors as a proof that only someone insane could commit such terrible acts. The jury chose to believe the prosecutor, what's that word? Assertion that Dahmer was fully aware that his acts were evil and chose to commit them anyways. On February 15th, 1992, they returned after approximately 10 hours deliberation to find him guilty, but sane on all counts. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms in prison, with a 16th tacked. I can't speak. The 16th term tacked on in May. Dahmer reportedly adjusted well to prison life, although he was intentionally kept apart from the general population. He eventually convinced authorities to allow him to integrate more fully with other inmates. He found religion in the form of books and photos sent to him by his father, and he was granted permission by the Columbia Correction Institute to be baptized by a local pastor.
Dahmer was killed on November 28th, 1994, by his fellow prison inmate Christopher Scarver. In accordance with his inclusion in regular work details, Dahmer was assigned to work with 2 other convicted murderers. Nice. Scarver and Jesse Anderson. After they had been left alone to complete their tasks, guards returned to fight that Scarver had brutally beaten both men with a metal bar from the prison weight room. Dahmer was pronounced dead after approximately 1 hour. Anderson succumbed to his injuries days later. In 2015, Scarver spoke to the New York Post about his reasons for killing Dahmer. Scarver alleged that he was distributed not only by Dahmer's crimes. Oh my god. Scarver alleged that he was disturbed not only by Dahmer's crimes, but by a habit Dahmer had developed of fashioning severed limbs from prison food to antagonize other inmates. After being taunted by Dahmer and Anderson during their work detail, Scarver said that he confronted Dahmer about his crimes before beating the 2 men to death. He also claimed that prison guards allowed the murders to happen by leaving them alone. So what do you think?
Jeffrey Dahmer has been such a well talked about serial killer throughout the years. And if you go to Milwaukee, that's all they're honestly really known for. Everyone knows that Jeffrey Dahmer came from Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a cannibal living there, and they had all these gruesome murders years ago. And a lot of people think he was just crazy and insane and everything, but I feel like Jeffrey was not really insane.
Mm-hmm.
He was too well thought out on how to do all the stuff he did. And everyone he literally just struck continuous luck through 20 years.
Seriously?
Of not getting captured.
Mm-hmm.
He did nothing to hide it. He didn't do nothing to be oh, I'm not a serial killer, you know what I mean? He was so calm when the police came the first time, and so he knew fully what he was doing, but it was just very, he's just well talked about because of the cannibalism and the necrophilia, and the fact that he was a homosexual.
Right.
And it's crazy because we have all these documentaries. They just did that one with oh no, wait, that was Ted Bundy. That was not Zac Efron. Did not play Jeffrey Dahmer. He played
Ted Bundy.
Rick. What the fuck is his name? He played on Austin Alley in Disney Channel. He played in a movie portraying Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay. Oh, his name's something Finch. Something Finch. Anyways, it will come to me later into the conversation. But, so we have movies after him. Everyone knows about him. You can go up to someone and be like, hey, do you know who Jeffrey Dahmer is? Everyone knows.
Mm-hmm.
And, him and Ted Bundy, I think, are the top 2 in people's discussion board, because Ted Bundy was also a very gruesome killer.
Mm-hmm.
And just straight luck. This man escaped prison 2-3 times. And he had just straight luck in his reign of terror. And it's just crazy that he just, they didn't get caught. He just never got caught 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now that can't happen. Nobody minds their business. Back in the 90s.
True.
People minded their business. They didn't think about it. They didn't really have that many serial killers at the time. I mean, there was killings, but you didn't have someone sitting there killing multiple bodies.
Right.
Not bodies, victims. It's just crazy to think that this man just woke up one day and was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna kill people and I'm gonna eat them. A little snacky snack for later. You know what I mean?
Well, the one thing that I read, the article, said that he only converted to cannibalism because he was killing at like an exponential rate. So he couldn't hide 3 bodies at one time. So he had to figure out how to get rid of them. You know, you can't have one dissolving in a bathtub, the other one just chilling on your kitchen counter waiting for your grandma to come home. Like, you gotta do something with it.
So he can eat someone else's body weight in, like, fat? Now, I don't know, like, all the inner workings of it, but you probably know that what does eating someone else's body do to your body?
Well, there's hasn't been a lot of studies because, like, you can't force a human person to eat someone else, you know?
Yeah.
But the individuals who have been convicted of cannibalism, they develop mad cow disease. It's usually found in dairy cows, but basically their brain shuts down and turns into like a ravenous, like zombie-like state. You know, like you can't think of anything but eating. Yeah.
That is just.
And it didn't say how long it took
crazy.
him to eat the individual, or how, like. So, if you've seen pictures of Jeffrey Dahmer, he's a pretty like fit, lean guy. Like he's not chunky, he's not skinny, he's like a normal person. So the person that he ate, it didn't say how big they were. Like it didn't say that they were like 300 pounds or 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Like if it's a 98-pound person, it's a lot different than a 350-pound person.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I just squished his goat. I'm sorry, Hanson. I just squished my cat. Yeah, it's just crazy to think that instead of like burying bodies, he was just like, well,
I mean, if you think about it, if
frying pan out.
If your neighbor is like chilling at their house one day and then they just randomly start digging up their yard, aren't you gonna like question that?
I mean, there's secondary locations. Like he could have gone like, you know, into the woods.
But you know, like if someone's just randomly digging a hole in their yard or multiple small holes, because like if I was him, I wouldn't have, like, his first victim, he dug multiple spots. Like I would take someone and make them like 6 inches to a foot. You know, like if a hole's like a foot, that's like a plant hole, like the size, big enough for a plant. No one's gonna expect that. You know?
Yeah, no, that was well thought out. And then going back and taking the bones and crushing them, that was very, you know, that's very time consuming.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me that he just ate people. Like, he ate people. And, like, you know, I know when someone gets burnt, I never really, like, smelt anyone get, like, drastically burnt before.
Yeah.
But burning flesh has a, like, distinctive smell.
Yes.
And, like, no one ever thought to be like, you know what? That don't smell like he's cooking chicken up in there.
Well, that's the thing. The, this is gonna sound so gross, but when people are burnt, like, you smell their fat burning, you don't smell their muscle tissue. By the time it gets to the muscle tissue, the initial smell and shock is gone. So it literally smells like you're just cooking hamburger or chicken without any seasoning. Yeah. So, like...
It's just, like, wouldn't it be tough to, like, eat someone? Like,
it's literally just like eating a steak. It's the same texture, like it's the same muscle components, you know? Like, our muscles are striated, which just means, like, there's lines separating them. Animal muscles are striated as well. Like, if you look at, like, a T-bone steak, it has, like, these, white hashings.
Yeah.
Do you know? Okay. So, human body is the exact same way. It has white hashings in between the muscle. You would literally just be eating a steak. But your steak would be your neighbor Steve or some shit.
Ooh. That's weird. Ooh. That's so weird. And, like, oh, that had to be... And like you said, he was, like, you know, he had to be physically fit to be, you know, picking up these bodies and hacking them, because I don't think it's not like the easiest thing to get through bone and tissue and stuff. You know what I mean? It takes a good amount of force. And my thing is, like, how did nobody hear him, like, picking up bodies? Because there's no way this man was not dragging these people around or flopping them over.
See, that's what, like,
Maybe he was. Maybe he was.
it just said his victims were African American males. It didn't say, like, the typical build. Like, whether they were
Yeah.
lean or athletic, like, and looking at Dahmer, when people, release adrenaline, depending on the situation, their flight response is kicked in, they basically develop superhuman strength. So if that's why he was looking at the pictures and stuff to get himself hyped up, maybe he didn't drag bodies. Maybe he just carried them, you know?
Yeesh.
Like a sack of
And now-
potatoes or, you know, a bag of dog food. Like,
Yeah. Now, he had to have picked victims that were either his size or half his size. You know, he wasn't going picking up no 6 foot, 200-pound man that could easily fight him off.
yeah, see,
So
it didn't
he had
say.
to have he had to have had a specific, like, target,
Right.
like, in mind. Like, he had to sit there and be like, oh, I can overpower you. But with the drugs and everything, it was probably a lot easier. But it's just,
Yeah, but
to this day, we never, like, honestly knew why he did it. He was like, well, I had to eat them because I couldn't get rid of them, or, you know, I just felt like doing it. He never really gave a specific why. And that, too, is, like, crazy to me.
Yeah. And see, like, nowadays in the courts, not that it does happen, but he could have pled insanity and probably gotten, not away with it, but he would have been an ad seg, so administration segregation, rather than general pop, which is why he got killed.
Yeah, it said that he did try to play sane, but they denied it, and he was separated from everyone, but then he slowly convinced them to put him in general population, and he did, and antagonize the other inmates with, like, they said he made his food look like severed body parts and all that. So he knew exactly what he was doing, and he got enjoyment out of the fact that everyone didn't like him.
Mm-hmm.
He enjoyed the fact that these inmates were so agitated by his actions of, like, making his food like that. And he probably went around and was like, I killed people,
Yeah.
I ate them, and it made people mad, and he got off on it.
Yeah.
He wasn't in prison long.
No.
I don't think so.
And see, if something like that, similar, not like that, but similar to this happened nowadays, the prison is required to do, like, a psychiatrist visit or a psychologist, depending, and he fits the bill for a sociopath, you know.
Oh yes, if they had that, like they do now in the judicial system, where the prosecutor can motion on their side, and they pick the doctor to find out that if they're not insane, and then the defender can find a psychiatrist that was like, oh no, he is insane.
Yeah.
And if he was tried in nowadays, I do believe he probably would have been under the insanity and possibly not put into a, like, general population psych ward, but like a psych ward where he's, like, on his own all the time. Or he would have put into a higher security prison.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because of him convincing guards that he's okay, he's not going to hurt anyone, and then he was put in a gem pop, like, that's right there. Like, nowadays, that would never happen. As soon as you try to start convincing someone, they automatically put you in psych. Or ad seg. Like...
Or they'll put you in the hole, or they will, make your life miserable. The security at jails are a lot, thought out, and, not every guard's going to be like, oh, well, if you give me a pack of cigarettes, I'll let you have extra yard time.
Yeah, that's true.
They were.
Yeah.
And, like, he doesn't need to be put in a psychiatric ward because, like, they do have, like, free range and stuff, and they're not monitored, like, all the time. Like, I wouldn't say not all the time, but, like, there's times where he could kill someone easily.
Well, if you're in psych, like, they even shackle you so you can shower. Like, a prison guard is with you 24/7. Or your
Yeah.
cell is video surveillanced.
No, I mean, like, they could, like, he could have killed, like, a security guard, not, like, the population.
Oh, yeah.
Because there would have been times where it's just him and a security guard. And it's just crazy. Like, who knows what Jeffrey Dahmer would have been like in prison now.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been alive around this time, wouldn't he? Yeah.
So he was born in the 60s. So, yeah, he would have been 60 years old.
Wow, to think what Jeffrey Dahmer would have been like in his 60s in prison after spending years in there. But we'll never know.
Yeah.
We'll never know. Like, we won't ever, we can't go in depth. We can't study Jeffrey Dahmer now. Just like we can't, go into depth and study JFK's assassin killer. You know what I mean? It's just, but now we have, all these other serial killers that were put on death row and now we have a general idea of how to look for a serial killer, I guess you could say. Like I tell everyone at work, we can't have a good serial killer anymore.
That is true. They're caught so fast.
It's so lame. Nope. That sounds so bad.
That does sound bad. I know what you mean, though. Like, there's nothing... We don't see that many exciting things, but if we were, like, in California or Detroit or Chicago, we would be numb to the murders and stuff. But we're in Pennsylvania. Nothing happens in Pennsylvania.
We just have crackheads.
That's true. But even then, it's not like Florida crackheads. Like, people in Florida fucking wrestle alligators. And in Pennsylvania, they're like, oh man, look at my tiny poodle. He got snow on his feet. Like, nothing happens here.
I have dreams of Florida crackheads. They're immaculate. Just let them be themselves.
Just live your life, man. Just do it.
If you want to eat bath salts and you want to run around Florida naked, live your life, boo-boo. I enjoy Florida crackheads.
Honestly, I'm the same. Like, as long as you don't bother me, I don't care what you do.
Yeah, like, get your bitch ass away from me. Like, I know.
Seriously.
Just go on your side. Stay on your side of the street.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. But, it's, like, kind of sad nowadays that we don't get to dissect Jeffrey Dahmer's brain. But it was going to happen eventually. The man is not built for social contact.
Yeah.
And he's, like, easily... He looks like someone could, someone did. Someone whooped him. And so... It's just crazy.
I know. Alrighty, guys.
And it's crazy that he has a fan club. Like, everyone was like...
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm sure he had fan clubs.
Or they're like, oh, he did nothing wrong.
Yeah, well, everyone was, like, so in love with Jeffrey... not Jeffrey Dahmer. So in love with,
Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy.
But that's because he was a heartthrob. Like, everyone thought he was so attractive. Like Bill Clinton. Like, everyone thought Bill Clinton was so great. Not comparing Ted Bundy to Bill Clinton, but I'm just saying, like, the general aspect. Alrighty, guys. That's all we have for today. Do not forget about our live stream next week with a special guest speaker. Hit that bell and subscribe to our channel to get notified for when we post a new video, and follow our Patreon for access to exclusive videos and merchandise. And as always, thank you for tuning in with us this week and making us part of your weekly routine.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.